Picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
All squadron leaders report in.
Admiral, this is Blue Leader standing by.
Well, good morning, everybody. It is week 2 on the Blue Leader build. As you can see, I've got it all laid out in front of me here. And we're going to be finally putting the color on this week. And the first thing you need to know about Blue Leader is how much yellow there's actually on it. There's a ton of yellow. It's almost as much as there is the blue, particularly on the inside of the wings. So they should have, I don't know whether they should have called him Blue and Yellow Leader. I don't know. First thing I did was pull out my 1/72 scale masks, blew everything up 300% to match this, and then I went in and tweaked some contours because the geometry is never going to match, and particularly if you've got a garage kit, as well-meaning as they are. There are going to be differences, so I brought the file in, started tweaking the shapes, and I think the first thing I want to do is paint in the yellow, and then we are going to protect the yellow, and then we'll paint the blue in and protect the blue, and then we'll do the overall the white coat on top of that. I think that's going to work. We might bounce back and forth between the yellows, the blues, and the whites, but I think what I'd like to do is go ahead and get those. Actually, you know, first thing I need to do is go ahead and paint these darker, and then mask those off, because I've got masks also to keep these dark while I paint the yellows and everything right. Because there's a big old yellow shape right here, and if I am not careful, it's going to spill everywhere. So what I'd like to do is, I'll go back in and darken these up, and then put the yellow and blues down, and then we'll do a lighter, not a white coat, but a very light gray coat over top of everything else. And then we start to grunging, which is always the fun. So now that I think I've got it straight in my own head, let's see how much I can muck it up in real life. Righty, I have spattered on the chipping media and it is dry. So now I'm going to start doing some of these big yellow blocked out areas so that I can start putting some pigment down. Get the yellow, and then there's the nice thing I have discovered about the paint scheme for Blue Leader is it seems to be a lot more symmetrical than Reg 5 or other X-Wings. It's like they made sure that the spots are in the same place on all 4 wings. It's not a deal where you have one wing has a bunch of color on it and the other ones don't. It also seems to not have the candy cane striping on the on this part of the gun. There's no candy cane wraparound. But it's not a question of if only one of these are painted. It seems like all of these are yellow. There is a big old shape right here that is yellow, and then there's a yellow box right here that's consistent on all of these. So what I think I'd like to do is to get this big shape painted, and then I can move the masking tape over to paint that other box. So let's do that. Alrighty, it's taken some time, but I think I've got all of the yellow spots marked out. We'll let these dry, and then I will mask them over and start doing the blue things. But here you can see there's the underside of the wing, top side of the wing, and this same pattern follows throughout all 4 wings. The ring around the top of the gun, those are all yellow, and then there's a couple panels here on the fuselage that keep the yellowing, and then I can block these out and paint over top of that. What I'm not too concerned about is I'd like them to be a flat color and all, but I'm not too concerned about whether or not I'm getting any lift here. Like you can see what's starting to happen is the paint is starting to crack because of the chipping medium that's underneath it. Well, that's all well and good because that's how it's supposed to look. So we're going to let this dry, grab some lunch, maybe come back and do the blue parts. And now I'm finally working on the blue of Blue Leader, and getting this particular shade of blue is going to be a tricky beast. It's not quite a navy blue. It's not a sky blue, although the blue crest on the actual Blue Leader's helmet is a bit lighter. But so I'm working out what would be a nice blue, and of course it's kind of hard to see it against this gray. So I admittedly I am playing with the color. I've seen some examples online that are a darker blue, and I don't particularly like the darker blue. Of course, we also haven't put any weathering on this, which will happen to, it might darken it up some if we put some panel washes over things. It might have a tendency to darken some of that up. But I think it has the same value as the yellow, and that's where I'm at mentally. So we're going to try this out, let it dry. Of course, it's going to dry a little darker than it goes on, so we're going to see how it goes. It looks a little bit teal in the monitor, but I don't know how well that's, or how much that's going to stay once it actually dries. Okay, although it looks like a Boy Scout might have blown up on it, or a Cub Scout might have exploded all over it, we have a lot of blue and a lot of yellow on my X-Wing. So we're going to let all this dry, and then I think that's it for today, and I think tomorrow we'll come back and we'll start cleaning it up. We will put the masks down over to protect some of these areas, and then we'll do the lighter passes, and then we'll start weathering. But I think I found a good blue color. It is the Vallejo Mecha color dark blue. It doesn't have that navy blue in it, which is where that was going to be a little too dark. But I like how it looks on the canopy. Seeing it here in the fluorescent light is a little bit off-putting, but I think it's a good color. Well, welcome back to everybody to Lou's X-Wing Emporium. Today I'm getting a bit of a late start because it was time for my yearly get your skin checked. Longtime viewers will know that I had a little cancerous spot removed from my facial cheek, not my gluteal cheek, a few years ago now. It's been a while, and I am happy to say that I have not had any reoccurrences, but I am on a yearly, hey, let's take a look at everything and make sure nothing's cropped back up. So it was a maintenance day today, so I'm getting a bit late start. But what I would like to do is to do this. Now that I have all of these blue and yellow markings on the X-Wing, and they have had a full day to dry, what I'm going to do is cover them up. We cover up these markings, and then we paint the white around them, basically. Okay, so I'm ready to put down a lot of flat white, and it's going to get everywhere. So what I need to do is remove everything from this tabletop that I do not wish to get the flat white on. And that includes that lovely canopy. And these pilot and R2 or the droid and the cockpit and all that. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix a tiny bit of the sky gray into this so that it's not a complete and total stark white. I think that would be a very jarring thing to see on an X-Wing that is traditionally very dirty. But we're going to start with clean, and then we're going to dirty it up. Well, if you can tell by the haziness of the yellow vinyl, you'll be able to see that I put a nice light coat of the white / sky gray. It's like, I'd say 80% white, 20% sky gray, and then just a nice light coating over everything. I'll probably give it another pass before I say I'm done, but I don't want to cake too much paint on there at one time. And then we can start putting in the griming and the gridding and all of that, and that's always fun. I don't know whether I think, now that I think of it, I probably should be removing all of the vinyl and then do the overall weathering. Yeah, I think that makes more sense. So let's give this a chance to dry. I'll go grab some lunch and come back later. Okay, I'm back from Bojangles and ready to put another top coat of white on here. And this is just going to be straight white, but I'm not going to put it on nearly as heavy as I did the 80-20 mix. So I'm just going to dust this over the high spots, as it were. And by not cleaning the brush out completely from the last time, it'll still be, oh, I don't know, maybe a 95 white, 5% gray. So we'll go from there. Yeah, that's working nice. Again, not going overboard here. And in the areas that I really want to stay gray, I'm not touching it at all. Like the nose tip up there, I want it to be a little bit grayer than the rest of the body, so I'm not putting on anything at all. Okay, that should be good enough for that. And then we'll just hit, probably not the inside of the wings much at all, but just these high spots. Good morning, everybody. It's Wednesday and we are hard at it today. Now, I am doing something that is completely contrary to my very nature, my essence, my chi, as it were. I've made a career out of keeping paint on models. How to mask off a model so that you can paint it and get all of your colors to stay. And not lifting up from the underside. All of that stuff. Well, that all goes out the window this morning, my friends. I have removed all of the masks that I put down yesterday. And I have to tell you, the job was fun because I yanked them up. I did everything you weren't supposed to do because I'm trying to peel up the paint. And I noticed that some of the areas, particularly where the chipping fluid was heavy underneath, well, the paint gave way very nicely. And what we get out of that is you get the paint lifting off where you've got damage. Well, that's kind of where I'm at. I wanted the damage to the paint job. Unfortunately, when you go, the way you're supposed to use chipping fluid is you put the fluid on, you put the paint over top of it, you re-wet the paint, and then you use a very stiff brush or a stick or, a piece of gravel, whatever you've got around you, and then you go back in and you basically try to lift up the paint. The problem with re-wetting this paint is it streaks, and I don't like that. I don't want the yellow to streak into the area where the gray is. I want it to lift up cleanly. So that's where I'm having to go back in, and I might have to touch up the gray where, well, for an example, take this shape right here. If I wet this whole shape and then I go to scrape it, by the time I go to wipe it off, some of the yellow carries into the parts that were gray, and that's no bueno. That's not what I was looking for. So I'm trying to think of a dry method to do what I want to do, and it's not giving me as much satisfaction as the normal chipping fluid method. So I think we're a good enough place where I could start putting the washes and the damage and the rust and all that in. But I was hoping for something that didn't smear, and it's the yellow paint. It's the yellow Tamiya that's doing the smearing. The blue Vallejo Mecha color that I used for the stripes, that's fine. If I probably should have used yellow Mecha color, I wouldn't have had the same problem because the blue isn't smearing at all, and it's lifting up quite nice and cleanly. So, lesson learned there. Were I to do this all again, I would probably stick to the one brand of paint. But now I think we're at a good place where we can take a wing and just start weathering it. Now, it's the important thing in this instance is to make sure your weathering is consistent. So I want to it's not like I want to mix up a particular color of a wash and then not have enough to do the whole wing, because, or not enough to do the whole ship, because you would want your weathering to be consistent at least over, you know, two wings that are next to each other. Now, it's entirely possible you could make the argument that this was weathered at two different times, or this was a piece that was replaced and then, you know, it got even more damage on top of it, so that is why it's slightly off from the others. But the thing is, I want to maybe I got to weather the insides right in here, this engine in here. I need to do that on both of them, but then I think I'm finally to the point where I can put these two engine or two wing segments together and then weather this all as one. In the good news column, you'll remember from last week's build where we had this big old gap right here, and I was wondering the best way to address that. Well, no, it's no big deal because that gap is covered. That gap is covered as soon as you attach it to this wing. That takes care of that space. That gets plugged into the side of the X-Wing, and Bob's your uncle, it is gone. So that's not an issue anymore. So now today we are to the point where we're ready to start slopping some rusting and some weather. But I want to do the move some of this out of the way. I might even have to run to the store depending on whether I've got enough of this on hand. I will show you where I was the reason I was doing the masking the way I was doing it is I was overspraying. Here's an example. I would overspray the thickness of that yellow line, and then I masked it with a uniform piece of tape, pulled it, sprayed the gray over top of it, pulled the tape off, and now I have a nice uniform yellow line. Let's see, some of these other things where I mask these off completely, and I'm yanking this off, trying to pull ironically trying to pull the paint off, and it's not coming. I guess it's just force of habit that paint wants to stick when I do things like that. So we'll get these guys out of the way. I want to have the again, moving all this stuff. You always see me cleaning, I don't know why. But I have the 4 engines here, the inside wings, the armpits, if you will. And I want to make sure those are all weathered uniformly so that I can close those up today. Yeah, I've got at least a good start on these inner turbines here. When you're working with a bunch of washes, I have found that it's good to give a break between coats, because you could end up just muddying the whole thing up and really shooting yourself in the foot. So it's good to put a coat on, step away from it, come back, maybe do a little bit of dry brushing over the highlights, let that dry, and then maybe put a final look at it. It's easier to me than just junking it up with a bunch of paint that never really dries, and you end up stepping on yourself. I use that term, you step on yourself, because you're putting paint over paint that's not dry, and it can reactivate that paint and cause an ugliness. And so what I'm going to do is, I think I've got this to a nice spot where I can, I'm going to buff up a little bit here. I put one pass of a metallic over these engines because, blessed, engines are always been metallic in my book. So at least at some point they were metal, shiny chrome metal, and they have been used for years, but underneath it all they were metal. So there should be a little peak of that coming out one spot or another, even if it's just on the highlights. So good, these are in a place where they can dry, and like I said, I'll come back and do a highlight pass on them. Okay, I am playing with the next step, and that is I'm happy with what's going on in here, to the point where I think I can go ahead and join the inside, or join the two wings together. And I'm running into an issue here that I think needs to be addressed. If I put it up nice and flat, you can see that it's not quite the same angle. It needs to be something like that to make it on the same plane as the rest of the opening. So what I need to do is, of course, I'll fill that gap in with some epoxy sculpt, but what I need to do at this point is to put a fairing strip in here that will kick this out a little bit, plus give me a good meaty solid place to glue to. So if I can bump that out just a little bit to where that angle is now straight, then I think we'll be even on both sides. Okay, so I'm getting ready to do this. I'm getting ready to stick the bottom wing onto the top wing. What I've done here is I've added a piece of strip styrene, and what that does is it gives me a little overhang here, which kicks the wing out to a better angle than what it had before. Now it's more of a straight angle. So I'm going to use that as the new gluing ledge, and what I think I'd like to do is butter the inside of that area here with some epoxy and touch the edges with CA, and the CA will hold it in place until the epoxy sets. So I need to mix up some epoxy. I don't know about you, but I have been having a devil of a time finding my old favorite, the Loctite 1 minute epoxy. I cannot find it at Walmart. I cannot find it at Lowe's. I have to check Home Depot to see whether they've got it. It seems like everybody has switched over to the JB Weld variety of epoxies, or the Gorilla Glue variety of epoxies, and they don't make a 1 minute epoxy with the mixing tube on it. Everything is something that you have to stir up and then ladle on with another tool, and I prefer having the syringe and the nozzle so that I can get straight into where I want to go. I hope it's only a temporary thing. If not, I'm going to have to go to the Loctite website and order it in bulk, because I mainline that stuff. Now, because there is no better clamp than the human hand, I've been walking around the house for the last 10 minutes like this, just carrying this piece, because I'm holding this into a particular orientation. And I'm going to continue this for another few minutes until it's good and set up. I can look at the resin that I have, or the epoxy that I mixed up and put on this piece of plastic, and that will tell me when the epoxy, hopefully in the kit part, has dried. Once this is cured, then I know this should be cured, and I can let loose of it. Then I can use this as a gauge for how wide the wing should be at the tips, and I can make the other one opened up to match it, so it looks nice and symmetrical and everybody's happy and good. And so right now I'm just trying to do some one-handed modeling while it's a hand model. Yes, welcome to my hand model. This should be ready to drop any minute, but I'm not gonna give it an extra belt and suspenders, you know me. But I could still get inside there to paint that white joint, although I think on the other one I'm going to go ahead and paint it before I install it. This one was kind of the test case, and then the next one will be the actual case. So let me see. Okay, I have let go of it. This is what it will look like when it is installed in the model. We're going to let that cure for a bit before even if I try stressing it, it's not giving, so yay. Okay, we're going along nicely on this Wednesday afternoon, and just checking the time to see where the time has gone, because it's been one of those good modeling days where things are progressing, not too much fuss, not too much heartache or heartburn. Took some time to start painting up on the pilot here, a blue leader. Oh, he lost his head. Getting him in place. Makes a nice change from the orange jumpsuit, painting a dark blue jumpsuit. Okay, as a last stop for today, I am going to put a satin coat, or actually this is a gloss coat, on the wings and the body so that I can put some washes on it tomorrow. And the reason I am putting a gloss coat down now before I do the washes is that this flat paint and this flat resin, or this pebbly resin, will really suck in the wash coat. I've seen it happen on some of these other things, and what that's doing is it's not allowing me to wipe it off as cleanly as I would like. So by putting a gloss coat over it, that kind of seals everything. Then I could put the washes over that, wipe them down easier, and then flat coat it when I'm done. But that's where I'm at now, because if I want to do anything that accentuates panel lines, if I want to put like a CPO or a black into any of these panel lines, I need to be able to wipe them down without smearing too badly. So that's I'm going to do it first on the fuselage, and then come back in and do the wings. Okay, I'm in my element today. I am just slopping paint on the X-Wing and seeing where it sticks. Now, I kind of pride myself, if I have a mission in life in these model building videos, it is this, that you don't need to spend a lot to get some good results on a model. There are people who every week I will post something that if I have a light in it, they'll say, well, why don't you just use Arduino, and why don't you just use this expensive board? And it's like, well, because that's not really my mission statement. You know, if I had all the money in the world, I'd be hiring other people to build my models for me. But today's lesson is use what is around you, and anybody can go to a Walmart or a big box store and get some acrylic paint. And this is all I'm doing. This is if you have a tube of raw umber and a tube of black acrylic paint, you can do all the weathering in the world, and it doesn't need to be some fancy schmancy Vallejo rust texture. You can get your good results just out of the most basic of things, and that's where I'm at today. I am putting a coat of smearing weathering on this X-Wing, and it would help if I had it in camera while I was doing it. So see, all I'm doing here is putting on a little big wide brush, big gloppy diluted mess of paint, and then just coming back and then wiping it down. Now, the most important thing you can think of in weathering an X-Wing, it's like, you know, like most things in life, it's the direction in which you wipe. Keep your wiping consistent. You're going in the direction of travel when you're wiping. X-Wings are not like Vipers. They don't have a reverse gear on them. They don't have forward thrusters that slow them down and make them go the other way. Everything is forward. It's like a shark. You go forward or you die. And that is basically the mantra for the X-Wing pilot, forward or die. So all I'm doing here is slapping on some really thin diluted, it's a mixture of raw sienna and black, I'm sorry, not raw sienna, raw umber. Make sure I'm keeping those straight. And then wiping it back on the direction of travel. And you'll see what the great thing about this is it sticks in all of the panel lines. And it'll give you areas where you might have trapped dirt. It will fill in the panel lines. It's instant gravitas. Now, if you feel you've overdone it, you can always take a watery, before it gets too dry, take a watery rag and just wipe it off. And the longer you leave it sit before you wipe it off, obviously, the more it's going to stay on there. I like doing it and then quickly wiping it off. That way I can build up successive coats if I've put it on too heavily on the first coat, it's kind of hard to take that away. I mean, yeah, you can do what I just said. You could take a Q-tip, and sometimes I'll take a Q-tip and alcohol, and I'll just wipe it down to kind of bring up the raised portions. And of course, you can always, you know, paint it over and start again if you don't like it. But weathering an X-Wing or weathering the Falcon is the most free-form type of painting I think you will ever do. And there's nothing special or precious about it. And if you've done enough of these, you can get a hang for where the dirt needs to stay and where, you know, the high portions that it needs to be wiped off from. And you can also balance this out. If you think the brown is too warm, you could put a cool gray in there. You could put a touch of blue in there if you wanted to. I don't want to get all Bob Ross on you here, but you know, we're just doing happy little weathering. And depending on how damaged or how worn your X-Wing is, that's what's going to determine how much weathering it has. Now, the only caveat I will give you on this is to please check yourself every once in a while that when you are doing your wings, that they are consistent with the, let me take this out. They are consistent with your fuselage. I mean, unless you are presupposing that a wing has been replaced mid-flight or, you know, in between maintenance rounds, that it's a wing off of another ship that's been added, you want all of your weathering to look pretty consistent over your whole kit. So that's why I always mix up enough of this color, whatever color it's going to be. I always make sure I mix up enough of it to do the whole ship with it, so that I'm not trying to recreate a color balance, or I'm not trying to recreate a recipe for a color. That just adds another layer of complexity that you might not need to worry about or might not want to worry about. Now I'm also painting in here where the where you see inside the armpit of the wings. And it's not to say you can't come back over top of this and put a highlight of a brand new panel on top of it. You certainly can, but this to me is the best way I have found to get all of those panel lines to really fill in nicely. And again, everything is a downward wipe. I'm not going to sit here and do little circles like this to clean everything off. Everything is in the direction of travel. Now I will probably, when all of this is said and done, come back and spray some sort of blending coat of a lighter color, maybe to bring just the, on the high spots, just to bring some of the panels back out. But it can be something as easy as that. Okay, I don't know if it's legal to have this much fun, but it certainly feels like it ought to be prohibited. But I am going over this thing with my mixture, my secret concoction of, hey, it's, you know, brown and black gunked up acrylic paint. And I have done the fuselage, and I am finishing the, I guess this would be the right-handed side. That would be the starboard side wings, top and bottom. And yeah, I'm just slapping it in there. Now, on the parts that I really want the paint to stay, that I don't want it all to be completely wiped away, I obviously am using a thicker variation. I am not watering it down as much. And using the big brush and glopping it in there and then wiping off the high spots. It doesn't really get any simpler than that. What I really like about this method is that it is drawing out all of the panel lines, which is what I really wanted it to do. I wanted it to pull out all of the fine detail of the individual panel lines. Now, yes, you see me doing this, and that's not the direction of travel, but I'm trying to wipe down this detail that's inside the edge of the wing. But I am doing my bestest best to make sure that everything that I wipe, I am wiping it with the direction of travel. Yeah, buddy. That's looking great. Now, while I'm on this kick and everything is going well, I need to go ahead and get all of the second set of wings, the port side wings, done. But yeah, look at the detail you're getting in there now. You can't plan that kind of detail, and that's why I really like doing this natural stuff, because I could sit here with a completely clean model and go and have a tiny brush and say, oh, I think the weathering needs a little bit right here. Or I can slop paint on, wipe it off, and then let the natural contours tell me where the weathering needs to be. Because just as in real life, the contours of something, when you wipe it off, that's where the dirt's going to collect. It's going to collect in the crevices that are there in the kit, just the same as if they were there on a real life-size vehicle. So you know, that's your best guide for how things are going to work. Now, there's still more to be done after this, because I haven't done any of the fine. I don't like using chrome, but I do like using a silver, like a bare metal. There'd be like some bare metal weathering, and that's going to come after all of the sprays and all of the flat, all of the washes, and then all of the flat finishes. And then you just want that little highlight of metal, like the paint just got scratched in that point, and it hasn't had time to crust over or get rusted. It's a brand new. It's a brand new injury to the paint job. And these are X-Wings. Have as much fun as you want with them. Make them as dirty and damaged as you want. Maybe your pilot is a, he's a reckless. He trashes things. Maybe he's a Han Solo fanboy, or maybe he or she is a stickler for keeping their craft clean, and they treat it like a fire engine, and they spend all of their downtime wiping it down with a diaper and keeping it clean. That's completely up to you. That's your world building. That's your storytelling. I'm going to set this down and do the other one, but here I want to show you the contrast here. There's the contrast between a weathered set of wings and a pristine unweathered set of wings. So we're going to do this last bit, and then we're going to weather up some of these. Actually, you know what? I think I want to go ahead and weather up a couple of these engines, or the guns. And let's see, let's get a match set. There's a match set. And weather those up, and those will be the guns that go on this starboard side. Now see, I almost made a horrible mistake. In all of my painting of these guns, I forgot I have not yet sprayed them with a gloss finish. I need to spray these with a gloss finish so that I can wipe them down without the paint sticking to them. So let me take those outside and quickly gloss them. Okay, we're getting down to the last wing, so I figured maybe I should put some of this on camera, just so you can see how simple it really is. Okay, and I figure by the time it takes me to coat one wing, or one plane of the wing, sit it down, wipe the brush off, kind of. Oh, and by the way, the only thing I would recommend using is an old piece of t-shirt for the wiping. I tried using paper towels, and they're just too absorbent. They don't smear things around enough. But this t-shirt, I have found that it's laundered. It looks like an old t-shirt, but it's laundered. Just absorbs just enough and allows me to wipe away just enough. I don't know about you. Tell me what you think. Do you think the inside of the wings would be newer? Do you think they'd be cleaner? Do you think they would be just as bad as the outside? Do you think they spend an equal amount of time open as they do closed? I have a tendency to think that they would be a little cleaner than the outsides because they're not opened as much, and but at the same time, when they're open, you're attacking something, so you're in a firefight, and you might get more damage or more weathering on the inside that way. I'm presuming that most of the damage comes, most of the weathering comes from atmospheric flight, and chances are your wings are going to be closed while that's going on. But that's just some of the things I think about while I am wiping down the insides of these wings. I like to keep them a little cleaner than the outsides. So we've got one last one here. And again, it doesn't get any simpler than this. Just make sure it sticks in amongst all the nooks and crannies. And if you can't get enough out of the way with your t-shirt hunk, don't be afraid to use a Q-tip. Just go in there and wipe it down with a Q-tip. Nothing wrong with that. There we go. Let that sit. Let it sit like that. Okay. Try to find a fairly clean spot on the t-shirt hunk. Make it act like a pad here. It is a contact sport, so you will get this weathering paint all over your hands. If you're the least bit skittish about that, then maybe stamp collecting is something for you. Yeah. And see, your hands can get, and it's acrylic paint. I mean, for heaven's sakes, I spent years painting paintings with acrylic paint. It's not going to kill you to get some on you. Worst thing that can happen is you have to go wash your hands, for heaven's sake. In between the various layers of washes and stuff that I've put down, I was working on some other bits, and notably working on this insert for the cockpit tub, which is wildly inaccurate, but in order to get at least a flavor of what was going on, I needed to add these horizontal accents. This was all just a flat piece, and I know that there is some sort of level of detail going on there. I just want to make sure it's not so tall that it interferes with the canopy, but I want it to be at least something that gives a little bit of visual interest there. And I'll touch the paint up on those. I'm working on the insert that goes on the top. Also working on Leader 1, Blue Leader himself, and his spiffy jumper. So, we're almost to the point, I think, where the guns are dry enough that I can start washing on those, but not quite yet. I am putting everything side by side and making sure that the weathering is consistent with these three main parts, and it looks like that it is. Please stay. Don't embarrass me on camera. You shut up. But we can see it starting to come together here. Looking pretty good. Something else I can work on independent of the rest of the kit, the rest of the ship, is this canopy. And I have I did the wash on it. I did the wash on it, then I flat coated it, and now I'm inserting the glass. Even though this is being billed as a filming or a studio scale filming model, and they famously did not put the glass in their canopies, I will be putting glass in my canopy. Well, sheet styrene as it is, but I will be putting the glass in the canopy only because I think it looks more finished, and it keeps the dust from settling inside the open cockpit. This is much easier to clean. This is much easier to clean than cleaning the dust out of a filthy cockpit. So letting the first part, got the main part in here, I'm pushing that in and letting that dry, just using some microcrystal clear to install it, and then I'll do the sides. Alrighty, we're coming up on late on a Thursday afternoon, and there's only one more thing I really want to do today that we can certainly get done, and that is I want to go ahead and glue in, epoxy in, these guys, these side wings. Now that everybody's been dirtied up, I want to go ahead and put these in, and then that will just leave the last bit of weathering on top of this, plus weathering the guns and putting the guns in place, because getting those to stand straight up, once we have all the wings are in place, that's going to be the last bit of important alignment stuff. So let's go ahead and get these in. Alrighty, we've got an L wing. There you go. That's an L wing. Is it a JR L wing or a Bobby L wing? I don't know. But we're ready to go. Ready to put the second half in. This has had a good, I don't know, 10-20 minutes to cure on a 5-minute epoxy. But we get them set, and then of course it'll be curing all overnight and getting nothing but stronger. So this is good. I just need to butter up the inside of this cavity here and slide the other segment in. Okay, and so here we go. We've got the wings on it. Man, this is turning out to be a heavy little thing, so I'm certainly glad we've got a beefy pipe running up through it. We're going to let this the epoxy cure for the rest of the day. I think before I shut down for the evening tonight, I will put a flat coat of clear on this, and that should take care of the last of it. And then tomorrow we have the goal of putting the guns on, making sure that they are straight up and down and aligned and all of that, because nothing spells trouble more than a wonky X-Wing gun. But we've got that. We've got to finish the cockpit details and this spinal piece, the final spinal. All of that stuff shouldn't take us too much into tomorrow to finish. getting the cockpit tub set in, and then getting that canopy on. That's going to be probably one of the tougher things. So that'll do it for today, and we'll see you mañana. Okay, the last job for today. Oh, and by the way, it's Thursday. It's the gateway to the weekend. You thought I'd forget to say it this week. I did last week. Sorry about that. But it's the gateway to the weekend. We have one more day left after today. Should be able to wrap this up. Shouldn't take too much of tomorrow to finish. But for this evening, I am putting the canopy glass in the canopy with the micro crystal clear. And I'm going to let that dry overnight and come back and clean off the little bitty boogers on the inside. The nice thing about it is it does dry crystal clear. Gotta love that. Something that does what it says on the box. But that'll dry, and then we will attach it tomorrow. Good morning, it's Friday. It's the last work day of the week. It's the last work day on this X-Wing. And you know, it wouldn't be an X-Wing project, or indeed it wouldn't be a resin project at all if it didn't throw me one last curve on its way out the door. Now, I know I am expecting a good and righteous fight to get these level and square and in camera, to get the guns on level and square. That I'm expecting. But the unexpected curve that was thrown my way this morning is in here. It's right in here, which is why the camera is focused right in here. I've got two problems. One is simple to fix, and one is not so simple to fix. The one that is simple to fix is that the R2 is sitting a little too low. I need to raise him up a little bit, just to about there. It's only fitting that he should be able to spin his dome all the way around this obstacle right here. Whoops, which you cannot see because, again, it is not in camera. So let me switch that again. Man, this thing is getting heavy. Oh, so heavy. Okay, let me, there we go. Now we're right in camera. This obstacle right here, this collar that the R2 unit sits in, he needs to be able, his head needs to be able to spin above all of that. So I could either shave that down a bit, or I could simply raise R2 up. And since, or whichever R this is, I can raise it up a little bit. I think that's what I'm going to do. Just put a little wedge under there and raise them up just a tiny hair. The other problem is more difficult. And it was something that I was kind of dreading, but I was hoping that I had fixed. And that is our brave and gallant leader, blue leader here. Again, who is seriously not in camera. I need to zoom back out. Okay, there you go. Now you can see him. He looks good sitting in there. Unfortunately, he is too tall. He hits his noggin right on the glass there. So I am going to have to shave his neck down just the tiniest of bit so that he fits, so that he's sitting down a little bit lower. But also I need to shave something off of his bottom. I cannot go in and lower the floor anymore because I can't get into it. It's all been covered up. I did lower it quite substantially, so the only thing left to do is to take a belt sander or something flat file and just grind him down just a little bit, so that when I pop the canopy back on, see, it doesn't really matter if his dashboard is around him. He's going to sit something like that. His head still hits on the canopy, so it's just a fraction of an inch. It's a couple silly millimeters, but it's something that has to be addressed before we can go any further. Alrighty, I'm starting to put the tedious work on, the exacting work, the fiddly work, the work that if you screw up, your X-Wing will just look not so good, and that is getting the guns on. Now I've got the X-Wing screwed down to this mounting base. I've got one wing on. You got to start with one gun on. And now I'm just squaring up everything else to that. Now don't be too alarmed by this because, well, let me show you. First measurement I need to take is along that dimension there, and that is making sure that the flat bit on the gun, which is this piece here, that is one flat plane that I'm aware of, I can put that at 90 degrees to the bulk of the wing, and that makes sure that it is pointing in the right direction. And then the other dimension to worry about is this one, making sure that the wing, or that the gun, is going straight out. The camera here is gonna, just like when you saw it in the movies or any still frame pictures you've seen of an X-Wing, if I point the camera straight down the barrel here, it's gonna look like it's at a weird angle because that's what the lens is distorting it to. So I'm looking at it straight on like this and making sure that it looks like it is, you can see how it looks like it's going out at a weird angle. That's camera distortion. So I'm making sure that it's straight this way when I'm looking at it straight on, and that it is square this way. So there are pins for this to sit on. There a little bit of a tiny bit of a platform. It rests on like 3 tiny points. If it had locating pins, it would be much easier to make sure that those are sitting at a square and proper angle. So my next job here is to make sure this next one goes, when it goes down, everything is good and parallel and straight and yay and wonderful. So it's exacting work, but I've only got 3 more of these to go. And then actually I think we'll be to the easy part and almost done. Now, gun barrels aside, because as I said, we've had problems with the fact that there's a brass tube in there that's cast in, that they're not exactly straight. What I can control is how much of this angle I put on, and I found some use for these old styrofoam or foam inserts that resin comes in, is that they have a lot of right angles cut into them. These are machined right angles, and I could, line it up on my square and it is a true, in fact, right angle. So I can, because it's thick enough, I can cut a piece of it, line it up against the edge of the wing, and then balance the gun, or the barrel of the gun, against it to make sure that it is sitting on the wing squarely, just like that. Now, what happens from that point forward is less of my control, but the nice thing about these wings not being closed up on each other is that you're not going to see just how out of level and out of whack the guns are unless something is just screamingly bad. And none of them are screamingly bad. They are whimperingly bad, but they're not screamingly bad. Line that up. Nice. Okay, so we've got 1 gun left. I'm going to take this around the tight way. And then once these are all in, I'm going to pour some epoxy around them, I guess, to kind of solidify them. See, this would sit like that. That would go like this. I line up the support. Make sure this is sitting up square against it. And glue the contact points. This last one will sit something like this. And again, I make sure that the flat part of this is at a 90-degree angle to the face of the wing, or the plane of the wing. So it's something like this. Okay, I'm putting the last gun on now, and I'm also taking the time on some of the, at least I have to count up, I think I did at least 3 of them. of these guns where I am adding another piece of strip stock right there, again in a spot you cannot see. So let me get the camera. Adding a little strip stock right in here. Not only does that beef up that joint, it gives me just a little bit more gluing surface for the gun. So all I need to do is to paint those to match everything else, and we'll be good. But that's the last gun. Now, of course, everything here is upside down. We'll do a nice little backwards barrel roll here to get you back heads up. That looks like it's a little bit too much of an angle, but it really is straight on with the rest of the wing. So, last thing to do is put the cut, well, not the last thing. I need to put this piece down, and then the last thing will be to put R2, or the droid number. I really, before this is over, I should learn what number that is, but right now that's not on my mind. And then the last bit will be to get the cockpit straightened out. So let's get this thing. Let's see. The droid has to go in here. Make sure I'm on. Can't make sure I'm in range of the camera. And then I need to slide this up so that the droid is equally trapped all the way around. And then mark where the back of that is, again because no locator pins. So we're going to assume that's right about there. So I got out the disc sander, and more than 2 seconds of sanding on the captain's underside brought him down to where he fits very nicely in that cockpit, and more importantly, the canopy can rest on top of it without his head hitting the inside glass. So we're going to get that glued in, get R2 or get the droid glued in, and that will finish the construction. Now the only thing left is final touches on the paint. I have some scorching that I want to do on the back of these engines, and then I have a pass of oil spills, and then I have a pass of the tight highlighted chrome bare metal scratches, and then we will be completed. Now I really like this base with the horizontal, with the the 90-degree turn in it. I like it more so than the wall-mounted version, but I need to use the wall-mounted version because that's the only way we're gonna be able to hang this thing anywhere. Unfortunately, I will not have the wall-mounted version done. I will show what it looks like, but I won't be able to hang it within the parameters of this week's video, because to make room for it, I've got to do a bunch of moving stuff around, and I frankly don't have time or energy to do that just to get done for this video. So we're going to get done what we can and skip on what we can't. Now, I didn't want anyone to think I had neglected or forgotten the base. Here is the base, and you can see I camouflaged the flange in there so that it blends in perfectly with the logo there, or the Rebel symbol. And I will use this. I will hang this on the wall, and I will hang that from it. But for purposes of getting this painting done, this horizontal orientation is the best. And one of the last things I need to do is put the black scoring on the there we go. I want to put the engine scoring on here, and to do that I needed to make sure that I had taped off this white pole so that I didn't get any errant black spray on it. So I just need to pull out the old flat black Tamiya, and I need to clean this up. I've got way too much stuff going on here. Let's clean the table first. Okay, so I'm just putting some scoring in. I've got the end of the engine bells scorched up like they've seen some use, and I'm just putting some little light hits of scorching along the bottom, because I believe that this would see the brunt of any atmospheric re-entry. Okay, here's the truth as I know it. It's time to shut down for the week. And once again, I have come up short. I am about 3 hours from finishing this thing. It's almost done. But it's going to be done enough for now because I'm not going to carry this over into another week. I'm going to call it a done thing for here and then continue to do the last bits. Now I need to put some metallic silver on these tips, and that's pretty much it. I do need to glue this down. I have not glued that down because it would take an hour or so for it to dry and me to take the tape off, and that would be anticlimactic. So we're going to leave that up. Of course, it'll allow me to get inside there and really, let's see if I can do a nice close-up of the pilot here. Okay, a little bit better color balance there, but now you can see. Now the last thing I didn't do that I was thinking I might was actually to try to make the clear visor for the pilot there, but I was afraid it would be maybe one step too far, so best to leave that to your imagination. The pilot didn't come with a clear visor, so I didn't put one on it. But there you go. He does fit in there now. The canopy does fit over top of it without him hitting his noggin on the glass. Here we've got the droid and the gunked up spine piece there. I got the scorching on the end of the engines, like I said. And of course here is the base it's done. It just needs to be screwed into it and then mounted to a wall. And like I said, I just don't know when that's going to happen. But here you go. This is a Blue Leader. There you go. Actually, if I can get that view to where you can really see in there. There you go. Now you can see in there. And that's going to bring us to the end of this unique build for Blue Leader from Rogue One. I won't say it was the easiest X-Wing I ever built, but Lord knows it's probably one of the toughest. Getting back into the resin mindset was the trick. Still a little bit to be done on it. I want to do the silver highlighting. That could take, a good half a day by itself. I'm a few hours from finishing this, but not enough really to carry it into another week. That's my dilemma. So until next week, you can see the base. And so until next week, you be good to each other. Who knows what we'll be working on? We'll probably start off with a recap of this, showing all of the last minute touches and everything, and then we'll segue seamlessly into something else. So until then, as I've said before, I'll say it again, be good to each other, be safe, be smart. Be back next week.